Hello and welcome to the Therapy Floor. I'm Dr. Vicky.
And I'm Dr. Ritz. We are on the floor getting deep into the human experience, unpacking everyday dilemmas through the lenses of two psychologists.
Yeah.
Should we start unpacking today's dilemma?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm a parent of a 15-year-old son and I'm struggling to help him with his anger. He goes from 0 to 100 in a few seconds over seemingly minute triggers. And when he's in this explosive state, he can throw things and punch walls. Okay, so he's really getting angry.
Mm-hmm.
How can I help him to manage his anger appropriately and also manage my response to him, which is to get angry back? Understandable. Yeah.
I was going to say understandable.
What do you think, V?
Yeah, anger. Have we spoken about anger?
I don't think we have. I think it's maybe one of our... I think we've maybe had like threads of anger that are maybe underlying dilemmas. Because I think do you know what we've talked about? We've talked about how anger is a secondary emotion.
Yes.
And there's always something underneath it.
Yeah. So I'm really liking how this parent hasn't necessarily named anger as a bad thing. I guess the behaviour they don't like, and understandable, smashing things, throwing things can be dangerous, and it's an inappropriate expression of anger. But anger in itself is not a bad thing. It's not a bad emotion to have, and it's a really useful communication tool if you can really harness its power properly. So I guess the first thing is to start with asking your son what he thinks the anger is about. What does he think he's reacting to? Because even if they might seem minute to you, I wonder what his understanding or interpretation of the situation is. Does he feel like his anger is justified in those moments? Or does he feel like there's an issue with it as well? So I think that'll be the first thing. What do you think you could be angry about? And usually we're angry when we feel betrayed, when we feel a sense of injustice, or when our boundaries are pushed. So I wonder if any of those things apply to him in these situations. But also, I wonder if there is something just that he is angry about that just comes out sideways. It's almost like, sometimes if anger is not expressed appropriately, or there's no space given to anger, the thing that you're really angry to be spoken about, it can come out sideways. And you can kind of look, not consciously, but you can look to other situations to really allow the anger to come out.
Yeah, he's got these outlets, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Which aren't necessarily healthy at the moment.
Or helpful.
Yeah. I like what you've said there. What I'm going to also add and suggest to that is, with this parent, don't have that conversation when he's angry.
Oh, yeah.
For you to be able to engage with him in a meaningful way for the both of you, I think there's two parts to this. I think the first part is, how do you just bring the anger down? Bring the anger down. I think that's the first part, because I don't think he can necessarily go, she talks about going from 0 to 100. I don't think the aim here is to get him back down to 0. I think it's first maybe managing things to bring his anger down, and then finding a safe space to communicate when he's in a much calmer place, which might not even be on that same day. It might be later on, but making a commitment to do that and to come back to it.
Yes.
And to not holding his behavior against him.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the anger, don't necessarily make it about the behavior. Think about what his intent, like as you were saying, what's the intention, what's underlying it, what's behind it, what is he actually trying to express?
What's he trying to communicate? Yeah.
What's the communication, and making it about that.
Yeah. And like the challenge may be getting him to recognize when he's about to go to that rage position, because they mentioned that he goes from 0 to 100 really quickly, and it's interrupting it, finding that slot to interrupt the escalation
Mm.
so that, yes, he can bring it back down and he can bring his thinking back online.
Mm.
So, yeah, you may have to employ a few different techniques and self-awareness really for him to really understand and to notice the signs that, oh, I'm about to blow.
Mm-hmm.
And, how can he kind of bring himself back down?
Yep. Do you think, though, before that can even happen, this parent needs to maybe like give strategies or model bringing it back down first
Yeah.
before we even get to warning signs?
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm just thinking about when he's angry. So if we start there, let's start with when he's angry.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do there to keep him safe and to keep you safe? Because I think I think there's a bit of a safety issue at first, isn't there?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what does that look like?
Yeah. So agreeing what that could look like. So,
Yeah.
Okay, are we agreeing that when you notice that you are feeling this way, maybe do you take yourself to a room
Mm-hmm.
where, I don't know, where there are things that are less destructible or where other people can't be hurt?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to get him a punching bag?
I was just going to say, what can he punch in a safe way?
Yeah.
Maybe starting with that first.
Could he punch a pillow?
Yep.
Could he punch a cushion? Because you're not going to do that much damage with a cushion.
Yeah. The sofa.
Yeah.
Just looking at this, I was like, oh,
yeah,
this would be a good punching bag.
yeah. Could he have like squidgy things to really like clench his fists around?
Yeah. And if it's quite a bodily reaction, if something needs to come out, like there's other senses he can use. It doesn't have to just be a touch to punch. Could he use his voice? So maybe it's like, does he just need to scream? Is that okay? Can that be tolerated?
Yeah.
Whilst we're bringing him down?
Yeah. Could he kick a ball?
Yeah.
In the garden? Yeah. So this is something that I think you can really play around with and see what works well.
Yeah.
Almost like experiment.
Yeah.
Experiment with what could work well for him and kind of give him some responsibility also.
I was just going to say, ask him, what does he need?
Yeah.
In those moments, what would he like from you?
Yeah.
What's his fantasy about what you're going to do?
Yeah. That's quite an interesting one, isn't it? How does he feel about the response he gets from you when he gets angry? And I think having this discussion with him will hopefully be really useful for him to know that anger is allowed.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that your response to the anger can be to almost to match his anger and for the anger to raise up as well.
Which is really normal for people to do. It's
Yeah.
really, really normal for people to do that. But what I would really be encouraging you here is to stay calm. So don't let his anger frighten you. It can be frightening. It can be frightening to witness, because who would want to see their child, punching things? It's not nice to see, but it's almost finding a way of going inwards and saying, communicating to him non-verbally, you can be angry and I can tolerate that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tolerate you hurting yourself, obviously, and that's why we're trying these strategies, but to not match his anger, to stay calm, to show him, like, I'm the safe space, I can contain you in this, and then once you're back down, we can have a conversation about it.
Do you ever think it's okay for the parent to show that they're angry, that he's angry?
I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So this is why, because I think at the moment there's a bit of a push for like gentle parenting, and I find I have a bit of difficulty with that, because I think it then puts pressure on parents to always be gentle. Whereas I think if we can aim to be calm, but then if I assumed but if this parent does get angry, I think just taking responsibility for that afterwards.
Yeah.
To be like, you were angry, that really just triggered me and made me angry. And actually, I don't think that was helpful to you.
Maybe this could even be a family discussion. How do we handle anger?
That was
I
was going to ask. How's anger been modelled to him?
Yeah.
So where's he learnt this from?
Yeah. And it could be that he's picked it up from maybe how you handle your anger, or maybe not. Or maybe he kind of goes the opposite. He's gone the opposite way. If anger is if anger is repressed, squashed, then there's even more of a reason for it to kind of like bubble out, isn't it?
Yeah.
When it's really pushed down. So maybe this is a family-wide discussion. How do we handle anger? Because that also helps it not to seem like the problem is located in him.
Yeah.
And he is a problem.
Yeah.
But generally, what does anger mean to us as a family? How are we agreeing that we're going to individually handle anger? So as a parent, you may say, it's really hard for me to see you in that state and to see you breaking things. And even though I know the feeling is valid, the behavior isn't okay. And that gets me cross as well. And then maybe I shout at you, and that's not helpful. So when I see that you're getting angry, I think I'm going to agree to, maybe I'm going to go to the other room and let you have your time. And then I'm going to come in and check on you. Is that okay? That's not me leaving you. That's not me saying that anger isn't okay, but that's me managing my own anger. That's what I'm going to commit to. What do you think you can do?
I like that.
Yeah.
It's taking ownership.
Yeah.
And then modeling, I want you to take ownership here. I can help you, but what do you need in this?
Yeah. I'm also thinking about, when we learn about emotions, and maybe the right way, I don't quote unquote, to learn about emotions as a child is when your parent literally feeds, names it for you. Like when a toddler is having a temper tantrum in the aisles or whatever, or throws himself on the floor at home, and then the parent says, "Oh, you're angry." The child knows,
I feel seen.
Yeah.
I feel heard.
Yeah.
I feel validated.
Yeah.
Because it's not about fixing it, is it? It's just about saying, I see you. You're finding this really hard. It doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
I've got you.
Yeah. And even if you feel scared, but this is what this emotion is, because I think if you start to label it, then there's less of a need to physically demonstrate it. I'm thinking of times when I've been really angry, and even just saying, I am really angry right now, has stopped me from wanting to like punch something or someone.
I like that, because also I think adding to that is you can have different levels of anger. And I found this really helpful, is understanding, like especially with my children, I don't have to always call it anger. I can say, oh, you're a bit cross, or this looks frustrated, or that seems a little bit grumpy.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you keep labeling it like just anger, that actually anger can have quite a big spectrum. And as you were saying, this helps this boy to understand, what's my spectrum of anger? What does anger look like at 20% and 40%? And when does anger feel uncontrollable to me?
Yeah. So those are some things that he can do to start labeling the emotion, having a discussion about what is this? Is this frustration? Is this grumpiness? Is this irritation? Is this rage? So you've got the labels, but you can also be thinking about the safe ways that he can demonstrate that anger. Strategies, experiment with that. And also modeling anger, modeling everyone taking ownership for their own anger and what they're going to do in that moment, and detaching the emotion from the behavior. But I would really be curious about what's going on for this boy, for him to constantly reach towards anger as a form of expression. And is there something underneath? It doesn't have to be something huge, but there could be a theme. Is he feeling unseen? Is he feeling left out? Is he being bullied at school? Does he have thoughts of, I'm not good enough, everything I do is useless, I'm always going to get it wrong? Like, I wonder what the general theme is behind his anger that is coming out sideways in different occasions. So the seemingly minute triggers. And then also ask him, the triggers that you are classifying as minute, does he also see them as minute? Or do they actually seem very justified in his eyes? So yeah,
like it could look like not a big deal to the parent, but actually to him it's such a big deal.
Oh yeah.
I think often things like that come down to choice.
Say more.
like when a child feels like they don't have a choice
Mhm.
in a situation
Mhm.
that they're being dictated to, that they can have this big eruption of emotion, when actually maybe they're just wanting to say, like, this is really unfair.
Yeah.
And actually for that to just be validated, yeah, it's unfair.
It is
It
unfair.
is really unfair. Like,
Yeah.
I know that you maybe want to do this, this, and this, and I've asked you to do this, and actually you do have to do this.
Yeah.
And
you can have feelings about it.
And they can have feelings about it, absolutely.
And still do what we're asking you to do.
Yeah. It's kind of like reminding me of my kids, and when it's like I take a toy away because it's time to eat, or it's time to like get ready for bed, or and the rage that comes out in them.
Yeah, because it just seems so unfair.
Yeah.
So again, asking him, like, what is it that, if you kind of use those touch points there, you know, typically when we feel anger, we feel a sense of betrayal, a sense of injustice, or our boundaries are being crossed. So which one is it for him? And can he say a bit more about that?
Yeah. And does it just happen with this parent? That's what I'd be wanting to know.
Does it happen elsewhere?
Yeah. Does it happen elsewhere? I would even keep a diary of it. Like, is there a pattern to this?
And also, I would really recommend that you really do lean into this, because there is the outward expression of anger, which can be harmful to others. But I don't know if we talk enough about the rage and the anger that we feel towards ourselves, and the things that we can do internally when we're angry at ourselves. And that is just as destructive. So really helping him to get a grip on his anger, I think, would be really useful, because anger is powerful and it's supposed to be. But, you know, you just need to wield it correctly.
Yeah, form a relationship to it that doesn't feel scary.
Yeah.
How do you talk to your anger? How do you make space for it? And allow it to be productive for you. Because it's obviously trying to tell you something, because you said, like, it's giving you insight into something that's going on, which is wonderful to see, because you've brought it here to us. So you're obviously interested in it as well. You're interested in his anger. And I think if you can come at it from a place of interest and curiosity, whilst like acknowledging your anger and trying to just keep it to the side whilst you're communicating about his anger, I think that can be quite powerful. I think, you know, one of the other things that just kind of sparked for me as we were talking is sometimes we can take anger really personally.
Yeah.
When someone is angry.
Yeah.
That can be really hard to hold and to witness, and to then not make it about us.
Yeah. But that's when those conversations are really useful, isn't it? Because giving voice to your anger and saying, this has made me really angry, or I'm really angry about this. I don't know, it just takes something away from, you are making me angry. You are the issue here. So, yeah.
I feel like we've offered quite a few strategies there, haven't we? I think ones that can help with maybe de-escalation. And even I would encourage you to write them down. You know, write them down together, like have a coping card or something. So that you're both agreeing, like, when you're angry, these are things that he can do to help himself. These are things that, like, he's agreed you can do to help him.
Yeah.
Even if it's like saying to him, here's a pillow, and whatever that might be. And then once the de-escalation has happened and there's been some time for just like everybody's nervous system to just, go back to a regular rhythm, to have those conversations in a safe way.
Yeah. Thanks for sending that in.
Thank you.
Should we go to the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay. So this next dilemma comes in from a woman in her 40s, and she says, how do I manage my health anxieties? I'm always worrying about something happening to me. I always worry over lumps and bumps on my body and stay awake at night worrying about something happening to me and leaving my children. I seem to worry that I'm going to fall ill, and I guess I have thought about it a lot more after my mum passed away, and with the kids growing up and me realizing just how reliant they are on me.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would have this but don't necessarily share it or say, for superstitious reasons, but also just maybe it just seems normal, but also feeling like
silly. I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I do. I think health anxiety is actually a really interesting topic because it comes into the therapy room quite often, but I don't think it's necessarily talked about as much, as one of the maybe bigger topics in mental health at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. What do you think?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Or even as, people talk about anxiety, social anxiety, but I don't think there's a lot of like publicity or press around health anxiety.
This is what I was saying. And I think it's such a tough one because what you're anxiety and mental health and psychology, we look at physical symptoms a lot. Like we look at what is the body trying to tell us. And here you've got a condition where you're being led by your body a lot. So you're probably looking at things, she's saying she's checking for lumps and bumps. So as she's checking, that's probably going, and then she's lying awake in bed at night, that's probably going to increase her heart rate, give her butterflies in her tummy, find it difficult to switch off because she's got this tunnel vision.
Night sweats.
I bet she's going to clench her mouth, give herself a headache, which is then just going to exacerbate
something's wrong with me.
Exactly, and this idea,
physically,
if my heart's racing, my tummies feel like this, or I feel a bit nauseous now.
Yeah.
Or maybe that lump is symbolizing something, and that's then what keeps this health anxiety going. And just to say a bit more about what the symptoms are, you would be seeing that. You'd be seeing worried that you're going to have an illness or that you've got a serious illness. A lot of checking behaviors going alongside that. And then even if you're, getting yourself to a doctor, getting yourself checked, having test results, just not feeling reassured when you get a negative result, or that it then moves on to something else.
Yeah.
Like you look for something else. And then overall that just causes excessive anxiety that just never really goes away. It's just always lingering there. And this is what sounds like is happening to this lady. And there's no actual specific cause of why somebody develops health anxiety. So you can be have vulnerability to it, and it might be to do with your personality style, how you manage anxiety generally. And also if you're somebody that checks their body regularly, that can be cause you to have a vulnerability to it. But then what maybe exacerbates it further is triggers, things happening. So it could be unfortunately, her mum passing away has probably questioned her own mortality. What are my kids going to do if I'm not here? I wonder if she's feeling that too. My mum's not here. What's that leaving me with? And was she somebody who went to her mum a lot and her mum helped her, and is that missing now? And how is that void being filled? I'm kind of wondering a little bit about that. What are you thinking?
So just to kind of go on a little bit of a different tangent here, I'm just thinking how incredibly hard it is and courageous it is to actually confront this kind of anxiety and other anxieties, really. I'm sure we're gonna go on and talk about how we typically treat it, or how we try to help someone reduce the maintenance cycle of anxiety. But it involves having to confront your fear, and that is so hard. It's so hard. There's just no other way around it but to confront it and to risk doing some of the things that you feel are keeping you safe, but actually are maintaining the anxiety. And that's incredibly hard to do. So yeah, I'm just thinking about, this is not going to be an easy road to tackle this anxiety. But yeah, I mean, hopefully things that we suggest are going to be helpful for you.
And I think the fact that you're aware it's a health anxiety That's a big step. That's the self-awareness part.
Yeah, because some people also just believe it.
Yeah.
There is something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Something will happen to me.
Yeah.
And there isn't that realization that, no, actually, this is more of an anxiety, a fear, rather than a reality. Yeah.
So how this would be treated would be to come at it from a CBT perspective. And what a psychologist would do would be like create a formulation. You know, what's the trigger? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are the physical symptoms? And then what do you do with that? And then that would give you an overview probably of your I think what you're doing with it, a lot of it would be checking behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's what's causing it to keep going.
Yeah. That's
and maintaining it. And that's where we would then start to dismantle slowly is, you know, reducing the checking behaviors, reframing the thoughts of something's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
My kids, you know, where she seems to be taking it is my kids are going to be left alone. My kids are reliant on me. What will happen to them?
Yeah.
And fears around that. And just simple strategies I think that you could do. For example, let's say you're just lying in bed and you start to notice your mind wandering, or maybe let's say before you've gone to bed, like as you're getting ready to go to bed, you might notice something, then you start checking. And then you get into bed and that's where the worry then starts. And that's where maybe the physical symptoms start to get bigger and bigger for you. So in that moment when that is happening, I would just encourage you to say to yourself, okay, I maybe have spotted something in my body. This doesn't necessarily have to mean I'm unwell. And then doing a specific technique. So that could be, so I would recommend here to do a grounding technique. So you could do a safety statement to yourself, which is to just say to yourself right now who you are, where you are, and that when you are, and that you are safe. So what that maybe would sound like is, for example, like if I was lying in bed, I would say, my name is Ritz Birra. Today is whatever day it is. I can't remember what the day is. I'm lying in my bed and I am safe. So it's creating that internal safety within you, because health anxiety and any anxiety is driven by fear. It's what keeps it going. So if we can start to just reduce that fear from like a level of like a, 6, 8, 10, whatever, down to about a 3 or a 4, that's when it tends to be more manageable. That's one thing you could do for yourself. Another thing, which is really powerful, when people experience anxiety, I encourage them to say the alphabet backwards.
That's really hard to do.
It's so hard to do because it requires so much concentration. It's not something that we do on a daily basis. Do you know what? Some people actually do it on a daily basis, because when I've suggested it to them, they've been like, oh yeah, I can do that really easily. It's like my party trick. I find that really interesting. But just something like that, like saying the alphabet backwards, or like naming, I don't know, like the states of America, like something that doesn't come naturally to you.
Yeah.
To just disengage your brain from your emotional center, engage your rational part of your brain. And then when you're in that lower state of emotion, then again, coming back to yourself and saying, okay, I have found something on my body and this is what I can do about it. If I need to do something about it, or maybe I don't need to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. My kids are okay.
And I think I don't want to necessarily just jump to thinking about the cognitive element of it. But yeah, I've got some thoughts about what she can do to start to challenge some of the cognitive distortions she's having.
Yeah, what are they?
Okay, I wasn't sure whether you.
I was done. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm just thinking about how she can start to challenge some of these beliefs, and we may have said this before, but I'm sure we'll say it time and time again because anxiety does come up a lot. But with fears, you don't necessarily want to challenge it by moving to the complete opposite statement, which may feel disingenuous or inauthentic or not necessarily real, but you can add some realism to it. So if you spot a lump and you think this is cancer, that's one extreme, right? You've kind of catastrophize right away. The opposite statement would be, it's just, I don't know, a rash. Like, it's nothing. It will disappear. But maybe you can move into the grey zone a little bit more. And so you can be a bit more rational about it. So you could tell yourself, I'm unsure what this lump is, but in the morning, I'm going to check it, and maybe I'll seek some professional advice, medical advice, and we'll take the next step from there. So rather than kind of like rushing to the another catastrophic thought, which is my kids are going to be without a mother, you can say to yourself, right, the next step is to see what this is, and then I'll deal with whatever comes at that next stage, and then at the next stage, and at the next stage. And if your worst case scenario is your kids are left without a mother, and I also don't want to just dismiss that and say, yeah, that's not realistic, because obviously,
I was going to come to that. I was going to come, because she is.
Yeah.
She's without a mother now.
Yeah. We cannot control that. But what, in your worst case scenario, what does that look like? And what can you start to do? If your worst case scenario happened and there has to be some level of acceptance about it, what things would you put in place to make that situation even a little bit more, I don't want to use the word tolerable, but what can you do to help in that scenario?
Yeah.
You know, do you need to be thinking about, I don't know, this is going to sound so extreme, but who do my kids have around me? Are they alone?
This is the bit I was thinking about, because her fear, she talked about her fear being, my kids are so reliant on me. So if you were to confront that, okay, if you're not here, who else can your kids rely on? Who else is good for them?
Yeah.
Who else is they're never going to replace you, but who else is able to give them bits that you can give them?
Yeah. Yeah. And that may sound like a really very rational way to discuss or to prepare for something that could be absolutely horrific. But what about the steps in between? You know, like, you picture the worst case scenario if you were to fall ill, but what about the steps in between? How can you be building upon your relationship with your kids even now? How can you be reminding them that they're loved, that they're surrounded by love, not just from you, but from so many other people? How can you start to prepare them for, not even prepare them for, but even discuss difficult things? Have you discussed your loss with them? How have you demonstrated dealing with difficult things with your children? There are lots of steps in between. I'm ill, the worst case has happened, my children are orphans, they're destitute, they're alone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
So adding on from that, I want to know how she's doing without her mum. How is she coping?
Yeah.
Who does she now have to rely on?
I was just thinking about that. I was just struck by the stark image of her being alone, I'm presuming, at night, thinking about this and really worrying about her children. And I'm thinking, who's in your life? Like, who do you have to really lean on and to support you?
Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Who's listening?
Yeah.
Who's giving you that unconditional love? And, you know, that you're worried is not going to be there for your kids. And that support.
Yeah. I think that's really important, because sometimes when we have the anxieties, we can just focus on the anxiety, but what's the anxiety telling us? What's underneath it?
Yeah.
In a similar way to, we spoke about the anger in the previous dilemma. What's underneath the anger? What's underneath the anxiety? Is there some real sadness there?
Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done about this? Who can you talk to? Who can you share your load with?
Part of me is wondering, as somebody who's also lost a parent, which I'm happy to share, but part of me is wondering the sadness that she feels of losing her mum, and probably how much that is just killing her inside.
Mm.
I wonder if she wants to protect her children from ever feeling that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is understandable.
Really understandable.
Which is understandable. You want to protect, well, I'm going to generally assume that most parents would want to protect their children from feeling pain.
Yeah.
And pain at that level as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I think it's just like human animal instinct to want to do that.
But you know what's also coming up for me? I'm thinking about existentialism.
Yeah.
And some real acceptance of the fragility and the impermanence of life.
Mm-hmm.
And how that can be really awful and destabilizing to confront. But there is a level of like having to confront that, isn't there?
I think there is. And I think it depends about your experience. Like, we're going to take this quite deep now, I think. So apologies if this isn't where you wanted it to go. It's just reminding me of a previous episode that we recorded. And I think because of my relationship with death and losing a parent and how I've been through so many stages with that, but where I am, let's just say today, and maybe where I was on this date that we recorded, because it's always, I feel like it is always different. But I think I remember saying something to you like, there's no guarantees in life. The only guarantee is we're going to die. And you were like, what? You had quite a big reaction to that. And I was just a bit like flippant about it, but we are. Like, it's, what's the big deal, Vicky? We're going to die. And you would, like, I could see it in your eyes. So I think that's another thing to think about. Like, what is your own relationship
with death?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. We've gone there.
We've gone there. We've gone there.
We have gone there. Yeah. It's one of those things that we know.
And we don't talk about it, do we?
No, we know it happens.
Yeah.
We know it's the natural order.
Yeah.
We know sometimes it's unnatural if it's untimely, you know. But the knowing and then the experiencing of it are two different things, I think.
Yeah.
Really two different things. And even, is it something that can be prepared for? Is it something that should be prepared for? I don't know. Like, you'll have to work through your own understanding.
It's such a personal thing.
And relationship with it. But actually, I think maybe it could be really helpful for you to have someone to talk to, and maybe a therapist about this.
Well, I was actually going to ask if this person has had grief or bereavement counselling.
Yeah.
Because I think this could be helpful to just unpick what's going on for you, especially if you said it's gotten worse since your mum passed away. And if you have, what did you learn from it? Did this come up? And because sometimes these things can come up a while later, they don't necessarily happen like straight after a loss. And if you haven't, is it something you would maybe consider doing, as much as it is going to be probably quite painful? Is it something that you're maybe ready to do? And if you're not ready to do it, that's absolutely fine. You know, if you were ready, what would that look like?
Yeah.
If you were ready to talk about the loss and the impact of losing your mum had on you in like a very therapeutic way, what would that look like? What do you need to be strong enough to do that? Because I think it does require a level of strength, because you already feel so broken. And I think to talk about it, you're so probably quite scared. I know I was quite scared, like, oh my God, is this going to break me even further? Like, I already feel like I'm holding it together this much. If I actually really talk about the impact it's had on me.
Would you be able to put yourself back together again?
This is it.
But so this comes back to just, me thinking that this is just going to be, this may be a really difficult thing for you to work through. But sometimes we have to choose our level of difficulty, or what difficulty we really lean into. Because although you may feel that the fear, you may not think that it's having a benefit, but the thinking about it, the checking, the worrying about it does have a benefit of maybe keeping you safe And even though that feels difficult and it's a horrible experience to go through, maybe you need to choose your difficulty and facing into it and confronting the fear, confronting your own fragility. Yeah, as the fragility of life, thinking about your own loss. Yeah, maybe it could be time, or you can decide when that time is that you really face into that.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing this with us.
Thank you. I think it's so brave of you.
Yeah.
So brave. And I think other people hearing it will find value in that.
100%.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we move on to the next dilemma, our final one?
Let's do it. Okay, so our final dilemma comes in from a woman in her mid-30s. And she says, how do you navigate divorce? I feel like I have to make up for the absence of my father, my mum's husband, financially and emotionally. I feel trapped by the constant need to check in, and it feels like a burden, navigating the guilt of having free time but not necessarily wanting to see the family. I also feel resentful towards my siblings who don't share the responsibility for caring for my mum.
I feel like there are two people
Mm-hmm.
who are writing this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there is the person, the individual, and then this individual has taken on a second form of stepping in as she says, a father, a husband to the family. So the loss is like being just filled by her. So that's why I feel like there's two people in this.
Mm-hmm.
There's this one that's the father, the husband, who is supporting the family, like taking over the role of the person that's left. And there's her, like who she is as a person, and her just place in the world.
Yeah.
And I feel really sad for her. I genuinely, like, when you were reading that, I just felt really sad for her. I thought, gosh, you're in your 30s, and what a responsibility that. And I think this is going to be really multi-dimensional, but like the responsibility you've stepped into, the responsibility that's been placed on you, either, and it could be a mixture of your mum, your siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds to me like she feels this is really unfair.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't want this role.
Yeah.
She doesn't want it to look like this. She feels resentful. Like that's probably horrible for her to carry, to feel resentful towards her family.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that her mother's experienced loss, her siblings have experienced loss, and she's experienced loss as well.
Well, this is the thing, because you spoke about two people, but I was even thinking three.
Yeah.
Because if you're taking on the role as a father and a husband, you're looking out for the family. Maybe you're looking out for your siblings, and then you're also looking out for your mum. And and you're also looking out for yourself. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
She's carrying a lot. And I felt like as you were talking, I could hear that. Like I was just like picturing her literally with a backpack full of stones, like bent over, like struggling. I'm carrying this burden.
So I feel like what I'm going to say is something that is going to be easy for me to say in this moment, but very hard for you to do. But I'm thinking, I don't know any other way around this other than for you to start talking, and to start talking to your family and having some very frank and open conversations about what is going on. Because I actually feel a little bit of like indignation, like righteous anger for you on your behalf. What has gone on that somehow you are left with this responsibility? And what is going on? What's going on with your mum? What's going on with your siblings?
I'd be interested to know where she is and the siblings. Like, how many are
The
there?
hierarchy.
Yeah. How old is she in relation to everybody else?
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily always have to be the older one.
No.
Not to take it on, that it gets put onto.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in itself can give us a lot of information, like where she is.
Yeah.
But you're right, a conversation needs to be had because boundaries need to be put down. Boundaries need to be put down with this one. You're obviously very, very unhappy. Rightly so. Like, it sounds like you'd like to have a relationship with your family, but not one that looks like this.
Yeah.
And I think that you deserve that.
Of course.
You absolutely deserve that.
Of course.
And you can get that. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be happy about it.
I'm going to say this is going to really upset the apple cart. It really is, because we're not just talking about you taking on the responsibility of hosting Sunday lunch every Sunday. You're essentially saying to your siblings, you've dropped the ball and you've left me. And you are going and having an easier life and have left me. So there's abandonment there. And that may feel like a huge accusation. And then also to your mum, how will she feel to know that this is your perception of her? That she's over-relied on you in a way that hasn't been healthy or helpful to you? Will she own it? Will she own her vulnerability, or will she be defensive and push back? Will she also feel offended that you've not necessarily wanted to step into this role and look after her financially? She may feel a bit offended by that. So I think this is going to be a really difficult conversation, but I'd still urge you to have it because I think resentment can be quite insidious, and
it can pick away at you
and at the relation and on the relationships. Not easy.
No, I think what can be your anchor, though, as you have these conversations or before you start to have these conversations, is what do you want it to look like? So if you can get clear in your head what you want it to look like first, then I think that's going to be your motivation. Because at the moment, what I'm hearing is what you don't like about it now. I'm not hearing about what you want it to look like.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So I'm hearing about how it's not working for you right now. So I want to know what would it look to work?
Yeah.
How do you fit into this family system in a way that works for you? So once you get clear on that, that's going to help you to communicate what it is that isn't working, but in a way where you're also taking a bit of like responsibility, but not just saying, look, you've given me all this responsibility this whole time. I'm done here.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is what I'm taking responsibility for now and the way I want my life to move forward as an individual within this family. And here's something that I'm no longer taking responsibility for.
Yeah.
Which is then going to ruffle those feathers. But I think if you keep staying true to where's your compass, what's the end, not the end goal, but you know what I mean when I say the end goal. What is it that you want it to look like for you? I think that can carry you through what is going to be tough.
Yeah. And I'd also suggest, if you're going to find it hard to just have this conversation, just kind of spring it on them, maybe you can anchor it to a particular incident or a particular event. So say, for example, I'm just making up a scenario here. Your mum's car has broken down and she's looking to you to maybe help her sort out the paperwork or look for a new car, and even give her the money for the deposit for a new car, for example. So this could be an opportunity to say, this is the situation. I'm really curious, or I just want to say that being in this position feels a little bit uncomfortable, given that there are how many of us siblings. I'm just wondering why it's left to me to do this, and it feels a lot. Can we have a discussion about this, about doing something differently? Or if that may feel too contentious in the moment because it's a live situation, maybe look for something that has happened and maybe has less emotional intensity to it. And you can say, I just want to discuss such and such that happened last month. And I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because this is how I was left feeling. How are you guys left feeling about this? And I really would appreciate actually if we do something different going forward. Again, going back to your point, what do you want? What do you want this situation, this family dynamic to look like going forward?
Yeah.
And see what they say.
And if it feels that actually having it as a whole family discussion feels too much initially, is there a particular member that you feel that maybe you have more of a connection with, or not even a connection, that maybe just understands you a bit more than maybe the others, that you feel like, right, I'm going to have this, test it out here first, that it just feels that little bit safer before it then maybe goes to the wider family. And then it could also be, I'm going to, test it with one sibling first and then all the siblings and then talk to mum.
Yeah.
It could even be that. Yeah. It's a tough one because you are absolutely, when you say that you're stuck, I see that, I hear it, I really felt it for you. Like, as you were saying, you just felt that anger within you. And as Vicky said at the start, when you're stuck, like, to move forward, I think in the stuckness you can figure out what is it you want it to look like. But I think you do need to move forward with this one. I think you do need to move forward. And also, what's the role you've been playing in keeping it stuck?
She's about to say something challenging. And you did. Go on.
What's the role you've been playing in keeping it stuck? How has it worked for you? Because sometimes it does work for us.
Preach.
Yeah, it does work for us. And maybe we don't want to admit it. It might be, hierarchy, power,
identity,
absolutely.
Feeling like the person that could be the savior of the family.
Matriarch.
That feels good. Yeah. I feel useful.
Yeah. So why has it been allowed to go on for this long? What's the role you've been playing in that? Because I don't think we need to ask why now. Sometimes I do ask why now. I feel like the why now is I've had enough.
Yeah. You've reached the end of your rope.
Yeah. Yeah. You're done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's totally valid. But say if we were like in weeks into our relationship of being in therapy together, I would be going there and I would be saying, what's been your role in this? How have you also maybe contributed to it? Maybe initially without knowing.
Yeah, because I think sometimes these positions, especially in families, can be placed on us.
Yeah.
And then we really step into it.
Yeah, because also, how old were you?
Yeah.
When
this happened.
I think that would be also very, very telling.
Yeah. And also, another challenge here incoming. Just to touch on that bit about I'm stuck, but you have a choice. You do have a choice, and you have a choice to not continue doing something that isn't working for you. Even if someone wants to continue, even when someone wants you to continue doing that, you have a choice. And I guess it's maybe just how you go about letting people know what your new choices are.
Yeah.
What your new decisions are.
And that everyone might not respect them, even after the ripple effect has happened. Is that the right saying?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it is, the ripple effect.
Yeah. Even after that's happened, like, could be like months or years from now, people might still not be happy with your choice, but that doesn't mean it wasn't the right choice for you. I think sometimes we're waiting for everyone to be happy with the choice we're going to make for it to be like, yeah, okay, I can do this now.
Yeah.
And I think you will need to learn how to tolerate other people's unhappiness with your choices because it might not work for them.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. So we've been quite challenging with this one.
I
know. But I think in order to get moving, you probably need that. And I think you can handle it. And
it sounds like you're gearing up to be ready for it, even if you're not ready right now.
Yeah.
Just even asking this question.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that one with us. And good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with it. And whilst you go through this, just to add on, who's your support system, right? Because this isn't something you have to go through alone necessarily. I think, reach out to your friends that can support you through this and can hold you through this, and you can have conversations with them about it as well.
Yeah.
Because it will be hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's all our dilemmas.
That's all our dilemmas today.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Ritz, what have you learnt today?
Do you know what? I really liked being reminded about what's the worst case scenario. Because it's so easy for anxieties to just run away, and especially at night, like it happens to me as well. Sometimes you can literally just go down such a slippery slope of having this thought, and then what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this? And I like that you have just, you brought that up, like you shared it with everyone, but you reminded me, actually, what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
And working through that.
Yeah.
Not just like, that's the worst case, okay, bat it away. No, actually, if that is the worst case scenario, what do I need to do about it? What are the things I need to put in place for that? How do I manage it? Because I can manage things, I can cope.
Yeah.
And just like, the lady who shared that dilemma, you can manage, you can cope. Your kids will manage, your kids can cope. So I liked that.
Cool, nice.
What about you?
Do you know what? I think what is staying with me is the observation you had about my reaction to you talking about death and the finality of it, or the eventuality. I don't know what the right word is.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I do need to think about that, don't I? I need to also be practicing what I preach, but also thinking about things that I don't necessarily like to think about. Not so that I can be prepared for any eventuality, but just so I can confront my own fears.
Yeah.
I may not have to do anything about it after that, but it's just making me mindful of, oh yeah, there are some things that are in my closet as well that I could be facing too. So thank you for the reminder.
Again. Sit with it now.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
What have you guys learned? Please share with us in the comments. And please like and subscribe and follow us on our socials and on here. It really, really helps us. It helps us to grow this community that we're wanting to create.
Yeah.
And what we're able to do. Like, we love being here every week.
Yeah.
And we just want to keep that going. So yeah, any support is very, very much appreciated.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
But for now, this is Dr. Ritz.
And this is Dr. Vicky.
And we will see you on the floor soon.
Bye.
Bye.